it is my absolute honor to welcome up a very dear friend, colleague, and probably one of the most experienced and knowledgeable officiants I've met in my 5 years in this space, Bethel Nathan.
All right, let me just switch this back to my slide. This is me. So for those who have not yet come across me in this world, I love wearing the two hats that I wear. So I am a humanist celebrant. I'm endorsed by the Humanist Society, and that was something that I came to do. My original title that I used was Ordained Officiant Open to All. I am not religious, and we will get to all of that when we talk about what couples I serve. So I marry amazing couples. I'm based in San Diego County. And so I usually cover mostly San Diego County, Temecula, which is a wine region just over the border in Riverside, and then Palm Springs and that whole area. Rarely am I in LA or Orange County, but if it is, it's usually for somebody who see me do a wedding and want me to drive up. And I want to make sure that they're LA traffic worthy. Because if anybody, the couple who was on the cover was a couple that I drove to LA for. And when I was chatting with the bride's father, I told him that, and he's like, they're very LA traffic worthy. And they totally were. So it was worth going up. And so I have been doing this for 14 and a half years. And I started like many of you. My brother and sister-in-law was my first wedding. And I had a background in public speaking. I spent 6 years living here. I was at 9 years on Wall Street. So I was in Tokyo, New York, and London with two large investment banks, and down the street for a good portion of that. So it's so weird to be back in this area. And I have now married 1,260 couples as of this past weekend, so which is crazy. It has been an incredible journey, and we'll talk about my business along the way as well. But I also wear a second hat. I'm a business coach. I work one-on-one with wedding pros, a lot of officiants, but wedding pros of all categories. I have an online program, which is done with AMM, and so you can find it on their platform or on my own, thebusinessofofficiating.com. And I've been working with AMM actually for a lot of years, because if you've bought their minister packet or you bought any of their books, you bought an Ask to Officiate workbook. That Ask to Officiate workbook, my husband and I wrote and created, and then it was being sold through AMM, and then they now have updated it and edited it, and it's theirs. But it's been a partnership for a lot of years that has been really important. Helping make officiants better really makes my heart sing. So I always love to share a couple of fun facts about myself. I've lived in Japan 3 times, actually. I do speak Japanese, and they do not expect the green-eyed, curly-haired chick to speak. It's a lot of fun to freak them out. And so on the 3rd time I lived there, I actually climbed Mount Fuji. And you climb up at night because you want to be up at the top for sunrise, which we didn't get there early enough to actually do that. And I ended up climbing it with a 77-year-old Japanese man who was much faster than I was. It's embarrassing. But there's a saying, if you've never climbed Mount Fuji, you're a fool. But if you climb Mount Fuji more than once, you're a bigger fool. So I did my once. And our honeymoon was in Southern Africa. So I have had the incredible honor of walking with some elephants in Botswana, and it was one of the most amazing experiences ever. Here's where you can find me on Instagram. So for ceremonies, for my Ceremonies by Bethel business, and me probably more as a human, that's the @BethelNathan. As an educator, that's Elevate by Bethel, and then specifically for the business of officiating as well. So if you tag me in, especially the Elevate by Bethel business of officiating, I'm happily share that. So I'm going to talk about success and happiness. And one of the first things I want to mention, that when we talk about any of that, we all have a different definition of success, and we have a different definition of happiness. And my goal is to help you all. If you don't know what your version of success and happiness is, we need to figure that out. But once you do, how do you get your business there? How do you get your life there? And that's incredibly important, because all of us have a different goal. Whether you are officiating weddings full-time, whether it is a part-time, whether it's just an occasional thing, we need to figure out what that is for you and help you get there. And all of that requires planning, implementing it, constantly reviewing, and modification as well. So here is what I am going to cover. I'm going to talk about your ideal couple and the what and the why of that. The why is just as important. I'm going to talk about the ideal couple cycle, which is something that we kind of created the conversation around. And then we're going to talk about those actual 5 steps. For me, now you hear ideal couple a lot, right? It is a term that is thrown around a lot. And I think that a lot of the way people talk about the ideal couple is not wrong, but it's different. I don't talk about the ideal couple in terms of demographics, in terms of socioeconomic level, in terms of where do they shop, all that kind of stuff. That to me is not really all that important. Now, I will tell you that some of the super high-end wedding planners or photographers or videographers I know, yes, to do what they do, you do need to be in a certain socioeconomic or have a budget for that. Completely agree with that. But for most of the rest of us, I don't think that's the way to talk about the ideal couple. I really don't. For me, it's all about being able to meet or exceed expectations in two parts. And that is your end product or service and your customer experience. And we're going to talk about both of those because they're very different. When you think about that end product or service, I want you to think about the fact that what you can deliver and what you love to deliver can at least meet or exceed the expectations of those couples. If not, you shouldn't be working with them. But then there's the customer experience, that you will genuinely enjoy working with them, they will genuinely enjoy working with you, and they will value what you do. So much of what we do, we're not a commodity. We're not selling a widget. It's very personal for us as well as our couples, and so you want that there is that match. And I'm definitely going to dive in a lot more about that customer experience. Why does this matter? You cannot please every couple. You can't. And you certainly can't knock the socks off of every couple. And I want you to work with couples that you can at least meet those expectations or hopefully knock their socks off. I want you to think about couples in a whole bunch of ways and think about kind of that spectrum that we can work with. I will tell you, so I'm not religious. I was raised Jewish. Call myself a secular Jew now or atheist Jew. I'm not religious at all, and I don't do religious weddings. It's not me. I work with a lot of interfaith couples, only 10% of whom are one Jewish, one not, and I can help them translate the traditions in a genuine way. But most of my couples have no idea what my background is because I'm not religious, and I'm delivering a thoughtful, meaningful, inspiring, very personal ceremony that's not religious. Now, I have many couples who will say we're spiritual, not religious, and we could totally work with that. But if they are religious, I send them to somebody else. If religion is a core part of their lives together and their relationship, they should have a wedding ceremony that celebrates that. That's not me. If they need a tinge to satisfy mom or grandma, I had one couple like, Mom needs to hear God once. Can we give our God shout out? Totally. 100% can. And so it's as simple as Mary and John come before God, their families and friends, pledging their love and their hearts to one another. Mom heard God, she's happy. I also have what I call my Aunt Mary's 2 lines because it makes Aunt Mary happy, which is, this special day is blessed. Mary and John, we pray that all your days together are blessed ones. Prayer and blessing are used to most in every world tradition, so we don't mean it in one way, but someone religious automatically interprets it their way, and they feel included in that. Cool. So some of my couples, they want those, and it totally fits, and they're like, oh, my mom's going to love that. But so for me, the relationship has to be at the core of the ceremony, the connection they have, and then we can add a tinge to satisfy. But most of my couples, that's what they're asking for. Traditional versus non-traditional is always very interesting, figuring out where your line is on that. For me, I have found, while I definitely to consider myself non-traditional and my couples are, it still feels like a wedding, right? So it's not as so non-traditional. They can be, I'm like, yeah, that's probably too far for me. But so it still feels like a wedding, but it's not a wedding they've seen before because it is non-religious, thoughtful, meaningful, and totally at the core about my couples. You want to think about high touch, low touch. What that means is that maybe you're more expensive and you have fewer couples and you're dealing a lot more with them along the way versus having more couples at a lower price, and it definitely has to be a lower touch because you just don't have time to do that, and they're not paying you enough. I want you to be thinking about how much time you're putting into your couples and whether they're paying for the high touch or low touch. And you're not giving your low touch couples who didn't pay you enough a high touch service because otherwise you need to have them. It's not fair to your high touch couples if you're delivering the same thing for people who paid you less, right? And also younger versus older actually matters a lot here too because of the use of technology. We're going to talk about the generation and how you need to think about it, but when it comes to technology use, we need to be thinking about where our couples are. And so for me, because I do non-religious, non-traditional couples, my couples tend to be in the age range of 28 to 38 mostly, definitely to lower 40s, but I rarely get younger couples than that. Even my high school sweetheart couples have been together 10 or 12 years by the time they get to me. So I'm still getting them in their mid-20s to late 20s because they want to become adults together before they did. So, but who are your couples? I love second marriage couples too. There's a different appreciation for marriage when they have finally found this partner that they're... So I do a lot of that as well. But think about that because, I've done a 50th anniversary renewal of vows. Those couples need a very different version of technology and working with you than my couples who are 27, right? So I want you to think about who that is. And therefore, what's going to happen is you are targeting just a segment or a niche. You are thinking about who your couples are, and you're aiming to please them. The ones who are looking for what you do and how you do it. It's not just the what, it's the how. What you create and what that process and customer experience is. This allows you to actually just deal with all your limited resources. If you don't realize time is just as important, if not more, than money, when you're thinking about marketing and in your business, it absolutely is. So I want you to be thinking about, if you target your people, you can use less of both money and time to be doing that. Doing this also delivers a heck of a lot more satisfaction and happiness to you and to them because you're working with those people that fill you up. And that when they value you, that feels amazing, doesn't it? And so the more people you're working with like that, the happier you are. And all of this creates this perfect solution for long-term growth and success. So let's talk first about the ideal couple cycle. By the way, I want to show you this. This is actually, I'm going to give you one of my secrets. In New York, do the witnesses need to sign a marriage license? Do you need witnesses? Yeah? Connecticut? No? New York, yes, no? Yes, okay. California, there's two kinds of marriage licenses in California. There's the public one is normal, and you need one witness, but there's space for two. Then there's a confidential license, which requires no witnesses. So other than, obviously, the officiant has to sign it, but there's no witnesses. But what I do with my couples is after we recess, I always find out from the planner or whoever where we're going to recess out to. I make sure the photographer's on board with where we're going, and the witnesses meet us. And so I want them kind of separate from everybody. After we sign the license, after the witnesses do, I do my part at home, but after the witnesses sign, I would say, okay, you two ready for this? And I make sure the photographer's ready. I'm like, you're actually married now. And that's that moment. And then I said, okay, I want you to do me a favor. Can you look at her and say, my wife? Can you look at her and say, my wife? And they're like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, it's weird, right? So I said, you need to get used to that. So can you do me a favor? Can you please introduce her to all of us? Because we've just met your fiance, not your, hey, everybody, this is my wife, Alyssa. All right, your turn. And she has a new name, right? And so it's a lot of fun to do that and to just have that moment with them. They're just present. I initially had some photographers annoyed with me. They're like, you're taking my time. And I'm like, but he's like, then I'm like, I realized how much they enjoyed that. And the number of times that's come up actually in my reviews is pretty amazing because it's like 3 minutes. But it was a moment to get them to breathe and be present afterward before they then go off to everything else and just help them realize something amazing just happened. So it's fun when the photographer gets that. I have a whole collection of pictures of that. So this cycle, the ideal couple cycle that we're going to talk about today, is a cycle in which every part of your business is designed to specifically and consistently exceed the expectations of your ideal couples in both your end service, product or service, in our case a ceremony, and your customer experience. And therefore it brings more in, which is why we do this. So this is what the ideal couple cycle looks like. When you target your marketing, and we're going to talk about each piece of this today. When you target your marketing to your ideal couples, you bring more of them in. More of them go from the inquiry email or phone call or whatever to actually meeting with you because you're fishing with the right bait. That's what our marketing is about. You're fishing with the bait for your ideal couple. So you bring more in, then you book more because the right people were coming into your business already ready for what you do. When you do the marketing piece right and the email part right, then the meeting is about connection, not about sales, right? So if it's all done pre, and we're going to talk a lot about pre-warming your leads today, then more book you. Then your business already has an end product or service, in our case a ceremony, that at least meets, if not exceeds, their expectations, preferably. You have a customer experience that exceeds their expectations. And therefore, your couples write raving reviews. They tell people about you. But also the vendor part's important. Other vendors recommend you because they've seen what you've done for a couple that they're also working with, right? This is incredibly powerful. And then it keeps cycling because those raving reviews and those referrals keep bringing you more ideal couples. This allows you to spend less time and money on the marketing because you're getting more and more focused on that, right? You're not marketing in places that are useless for you. I want you to be tracking where your bookings come from as well as where your leads are coming from. That is absolutely essential. You need to know where people are getting to you. Your bookings, I suggest you ask them twice in the process. Once when they come to you, and then a little later on when you're working. By the way, because it might be a different answer. Not intentionally messing with you, but like the last place they saw you before they clicked to you is what they're going to think when they first inquire. And then later on, they're like, oh, yeah, well, my wedding planner told me about you, and then I read your reviews on the Knot. I just knew they came from the Knot, right? So it's helpful to, oh, cool, I didn't, I totally would assume Melissa had told them about me, but I didn't know. And so it brings more and more in. Why is it incredibly important to focus on that? Well, we really have limited time and money. And things that you think are free, social media, takes a lot of time too. So we want to be sure that you're using that in the right way. Have to be efficient and effective. And this is important to think about. We don't get repeat business. Now, even if your couple splits up and they come to you, somebody comes to you, that's still not repeat business. You're not doing the same wedding for the same couple again, right? And I've had some of my couples that I married come back for renewal of vows. That's still not repeat. We're still creating a new ceremony for that moment, right? So it's different from you go get your facial and you love what they did, and you go back and they do another facial for you, right? We don't have that. So we need to be sure, because we're always looking for new business. Every single year, we have to bring more and more people in. And therefore, you want that to be as effective and efficient as you can be. And reviews and referrals become a huge part of that the longer you're in business. All of this, as I mentioned, reduced marketing dollars. That's a really good thing, right? Being able to actually spend less time and money, but get more in there. More pre-warmed leads. As I said, I'm definitely going to talk about that in a little bit, which means that you book more, you have a higher inquiry to booking ratio, less rush to respond to inquiries. Here's what I mean by that. If you have not distinguished yourself as different from your colleagues around you, it does matter how fast you reply to a lead because they're looking for an officiant. The more that you have distinguished who you are, you've niched yourself, you've made sure your marketing dollars are doing the right thing and your marketing messaging is doing the right thing, which we'll talk a lot about. Then they're looking for you. Or they still may have inquired with 3 people, but they're not like who's first in replies. Every once in a while I'll get an email and then I'll reply and they're like, oh, cool, thanks, we already got somebody. Like it was 4 hours. So they clearly didn't care who it was. They just wanted somebody who was available and would do it, right? That's not who I am. So the more you niche that, the more they're waiting for your reply. I try to reply to all inquiries by that night. Obviously, if I'm at my desk and working and an inquiry comes in, I answer really quickly. I have a fantastic business management system that we could definitely talk about and that makes it very easy to reply in a personal but efficient way. And then even if I'm literally hours later, I'll get an email back the next morning, thanks so much for your quick reply, because they were waiting for me, right? So that's the less rush. It also means that your processes and systems can be more efficient because you're only aiming it at your couples and not trying to worry about satisfying everybody. And it's more targeted relationship building. You want to be connecting with all of the other pros, both officiants and other categories, that serve your ideal couple. The more you do this, you learn which wedding planners, which DJs, which photographers tend to attract the same couples that you do. And those are the people you want to really be having real connections with. It's when you're newer, you want name recognition and you need to be networking in a broader way. once you have those relationships that continue to feed you the right things, then you don't need to be doing that. Now, before I go on further, I have a question for all of you. What's really been cool about these Officiant Accelerators, and this is our third one, by the way. We started in Atlanta and then did Chicago, is that there is a total mix in this room of experiences and approaches. And so we're going to break you out in experience groups in a little bit to actually work on some stuff together. So I'd really love to get a sense from you. So who has been officiating for more than 10 years? Shelly. Who has been 5 to 9 years? Who has been the 2 to 5 years? Who is 0 to 2? Awesome. And then who does not have a business at all? Cool. This is huge. This is huge, seriously. This is why you're here with us. This is why we're doing this, and this is why we created. And so it's a lot of fun seeing the different experience levels, and it's important for us to know that, because when Chris talks later, he wants to be sure he's aiming at the right, and me, and when Jimmy does and Samora does. So we want to be sure that we kind of know that. But we're going to break you down into groups in a little bit. Again, targeted. So why does having an ideal couple cycle lead to happiness and success? It runs efficiently. You're not wasting your time on things that don't pan out. You deliver the quality of the product or service that you want to. I choose to only do personal ceremonies. I do not have a generic option that just doesn't make my heart sing. So I only do personal, whether it's a wedding or an elopement. They still do homework for me. And we'll talk about who my couples are in a bit when I talk about marketing. It also delivers the quality of customer experience you want. Do you want to be hands-on with your couple, or do you want to just let technology kind of do it all? Again, if you are lower price, one of my coaching clients is an officiant who, he also happens to be religious. And when we first met up for a coaching session, I said, hey, do you work with LGBTQ couples? And he was like, absolutely not. I'm like, well, then your website is clear. Good. It's sending the right message. Because all he had were straight couples, mostly white couples. And I'm like, you're telling everybody who you serve. So there you go. Otherwise, I was going to say you need to change your messaging, but clearly you don't. So, and he was jealous of what I earned. So I charge $1,000 a wedding. And other people in here are more than I am, but that's one of the highest in the San Diego area, definitely. And he was jealous of what I was able to charge. And so we were talking about who he works with, what his process is. And I'm like, well, we're going to have to change all of that. So we're going to have to change all of your marketing messaging. We have to change all of your processes. And we have to change, because these couples expect a higher touch. And these couples aren't going to react well to the current marketing. You need to change all of these things. And he decided by the end of the hour, he's like, yeah, no, it doesn't make sense for me. Which is, I knew walking in, but he had to see what it would take to do that. And it is different, because his $350, and so I was encouraging him to go up slowly with those couples. They were much more price sensitive. And so, hey, you can go up a little bit more, make sure that you're doing your messaging right, but he didn't want to put the time in to be working as hands-on with couples. Cool, then have the best business of that. And he did. He brought in other, also religious people, and he has built a wonderful team and a wonderful business at that. That's how it should be. And whenever I get an inquiry for a religious couple, he's one of the ones I suggest, because I know he'll take care of them. So, and this allows you to deliver to those couples who value it, right? This is what's important. And it builds year after year. And I promise you this has all relevance no matter what price you are. It's all incredibly important to have this ideal couple cycle. So let's talk about the 5 steps then as a result of this. By the way, this is the, how many have been to the San Diego Zoo or Safari Park? Do you know they do weddings there? I don't know if you can see any giraffes or rhinos behind me, but this spot usually has some stuff over there. So anyway, this is the Safari Park. So the Safari Park does a lot of weddings. This is an incredible overlook. And let me tell you, when there are rhinos and giraffes hanging out behind you, you need to be sure the ceremony is really engaging. Otherwise, you're losing them to looking at all the animals, right? So the zoo doesn't do as many. They don't really have the space for it. But the Safari Park, it's fantastic. I love doing weddings there. So these are all 5 steps. We're going to talk about each of them. You have to determine who your ideal couple is. You're then going to focus your marketing. You're then going to focus your processes. Then you're going to focus the ceremony. And you're going to evaluate and improve each year. Now, the focusing your ceremony, as I said, Jimmy and I are going to talk about a lot of rituals and ways you can approach things. And Samora is incredible talking about interfaith couples, and because a lot of our couples that we see are multicultural, interfaith, and it's a lot of fun to be able to then help them create something that's them, right? In this case, as you can see, it's an Asian bride and white groom, and they wanted to do a tea ceremony for the family. And sometimes the tea ceremony comes earlier. It's not done in the ceremony. In this case, they want to do it in the ceremony. And I also suggested that I said, well, you're not only going to serve your families, I want you to serve each other after that. They're like, what? And I said, well, you're giving to your partner in marriage, but you also have to receive that thoughtfulness. So I want you to not only think about your serving tea done to your partner, but I want you to think about receiving that with all the thoughtfulness and care that they want to. Because sometimes receiving love is harder for all of us. It's easier to take care. And so it was a lot of fun that not only did they serve their parents, but then they came back and served each other. And that was something that, talking with them, does this feel right for you? Hey, there's an idea. And they were like, oh my God, that's incredible. When they then did that at the end, the amount of, oh, in the crowd was so, they're like, that's awesome. Nobody expected that. So you need first to determine your ideal couple. You have to have an idea of who and what they are and what they care about. By the way, this couple, he's Indian, she's white, and I definitely have a lot of couples like that. And depending on, some of my couples do have a full Indian Hindu ceremony first, and then they'll go change during cocktail hour, and then I'll do the Western ceremony afterward. Sometimes I do both, and so I mix some of the traditions in, again, in a modern, not traditional way, because my couples love honoring family and tradition and culture, but they don't necessarily want it explained in the traditional way. So I have modern explanations of so many different traditions, and that's what my couples appreciate, because they want to do the veil, coins, and cord as a Filipino couple to honor their families, but they don't want the Catholic verbiage, because that's not them. And so it's a lot of fun to be able to work with them to do that. And so this is one of those couples. So if I ask you who your ideal couple is, and your answer is whoever will pay me, that is wrong, and we need to talk. Now, when you're newer, there is no doubt. We have to pay our rent, right? Absolutely. Do I still say yes to couples who are not ideal? Yeah, I figure I'm about 90% now, 90% ideal couples. So when I get super annoyed at a couple, my husband's like, that's only in the 10% though. You're like, you don't have that many of those. And you can't be perfect. I try to be sure I see any red flags or yellow flags as we're meeting beforehand, but sometimes I'm fooled. And if you're newer, you don't necessarily know who that is yet. And we'll talk about that when we kind of break out. I had to marry couples my first year that some of them I'm like, I wouldn't say yes now. I will tell you that I have a robe in the back of my closet. My first year, in 2009, I did 12 weddings, which at first I was beating myself up about. And I'm like, well, I launched my business really in May, and most people have actually now, I know that they've booked their officiant. So 12 is probably okay. The next year was 72, so it built very quickly. So, and then 108, 107, 118. And then something amazing happened in 2013, which is marriage equality came back to California. So I was incredibly busy in 2013, 2014 for a lot of couples, especially from red states who couldn't be married at home. They would come to California. As you probably expect from a lot of things I've said, yes, I'm a very proud ally, and I have married a lot of LGBT couples along the way, and that's very, very important to me. So, but in that first year, I asked kind of, what do you want me to wear? And this one couple was like, can you wear a robe? Because the family was Catholic, and I'm like, you're getting married outdoors by a woman. It's clear it's not really a Catholic thing, but she's like, yeah, I think she'd just feel better if you're in a robe. So I bought a robe, probably didn't make any money on that wedding because I had to buy a robe. They were at my profit, right? When I had another couple later that year, when I said, hey, what do you want me to wear? I have black pantsuit, robe. And so 2 other couples, one that year and one the next year, asked. And I realized at that point, I'm not robe clergy. That's not who I am. And just didn't feel comfortable for me. You won't see any religious titles on my website and stuff anywhere either. And so you will not see ever a picture of me in a robe, because I don't want to put that out there, because that's not who I am now. So it's in the back of my closet, never to be seen again. But you need to be thinking about characteristics of who your couples are, both in terms of generational, which we'll talk about, and then also your specific couples. We have to understand the generation of who you are talking to in order to effectively market. That's not only being in the right place, because you want to market in the place that your couples are. The amount of times that I will hear in a Facebook group, where should I be advertising? Where should I be marketing? And then people all pop in, wait a minute, everybody's business is different, their region is different, their price point is different. You can't say what works for you. It's just funny. Everybody will just go, this, oh no, that's horrible, do this. And this person is just more confused. Instead, that's what we do a lot of one-on-one, because we're talking about their specific business and where they should be. Because you want to be in the right place where your couples are, but then you also want to be sure that your messaging, your marketing messaging, so your verbiage, your images, your video, all match for that person. You also then develop processes and systems that work the way your couples want. I have a load of couples who are engineers, project managers, who love the fact that I have a real process, but then it ends up with something really personal and thoughtful, right? But they love that there's this real process. So many couples are appreciative for that because they don't know how to do this. And you can then create a ceremony that fits them because you know who they are. That point at the bottom, we're in a weird industry. Every year we get older and our couples stay the same age, right? So likely you are not your ideal couple. I am not my ideal couple. I've been married for 16 and a half years. I am significantly older. Now, when I started this business, I'm not afraid to tell you my age, but when I started this business, I was 39. So I was much closer to their range. Been in this 14 and a half years, so you know how old I am. But every year we get older. So we need to be thinking about who our couples are at any given point and market to them, not market to what you'd want to hear, right? Generationally, so the Knot every year does a fantastic survey of couples, anywhere from 12 to 15,000 couples who got married in the previous year. So every year we get a real wedding study, a real wedding report, which is fantastic information. I'm proud to be one of the educators for WeddingPro, by the way, so I speak at their events and do some of their webinars and stuff. So they saw that the average age is 31 and the typical age range 25 to 37. Now, I want you to think about where that fits. That means it's the younger millennials and it's the older Gen Zs. Gen Zs are now old enough to be getting married because the oldest Gen Zs are now 26. They are now in our age range, right? And there's never a firm line between generations. So older millennials tend to be more similar to us Gen Xs. Younger millennials and older Gen Zs, again, tend to be a little more similar. So you don't have to think of them as two different generations anymore. Now it's just that group. You have to remember that they have short attention spans, approximately 8 to 12 seconds. Even though I'm significantly older than that, that stupid device that's in our pocket all the time has brought my attention span down too. All of us have. But we need to think about that because we need to capture their attention quickly. Couples will be happy to scroll further through your website, through other things, if you've gotten their attention and they think that you're worth reading. If you haven't gotten their attention quickly, it's seeming to be a match for them, you've lost them. The other thing that came up is how important having a wedding that is personal and fits them is. Couples are willing to spend more in order to have it be more relevant to them, including food. They want, to have a late night snack of Philly cheesesteaks because they met in Philadelphia. Things like that come up in weddings where they want it to really fit them. Well, that's perfect for us because we get to help with that a lot. It's also about inclusion. We have to remember that this generation is the most diverse generation we've ever had, which is fantastic, and you have to be thinking about inclusion. Remember that you are sending a message about who your couples are with images more than anything. Couples will know if they're welcome in your business very quickly and will make a determination. I want to be sure that all the photos and all the videos on my website, just looking at them, they can absolutely know that they're welcome in my business. That's incredibly important. So think about what they're actually seeing. And they're technology natives. Many of us who are older, we've had to learn the technology that is. This generation has grown up with all of this technology, and so they're incredibly comfortable, which means that you need to be thinking about systems like electronic contracts. They want to sign electronically, pay electronically. You're not mailing somebody a contract to sign and mail to you anymore. Someone said, well, they could fax. I'm like, 1995 wants you back. Like, that's just not a thing. Now, some of us can scan. One of the great things is now you can scan even from your phone. You don't even need a scanner at home. But just think about making it easier for them. You want less friction in your systems and to be comfortable for them. So everything is electronically signed and electronically paid in my business because they're tech natives. But you also have to actually know your specific couples are, right? So that way, same thing. You can market in the right way in the right place. You can develop processes and systems for them and create a ceremony that fits them. My couples say that they want a ceremony that is fun, personal, meaningful, non-traditional, usually non-religious. That's what I call my 4 words. I'm going to show you what my different websites have looked like over the years. Those 4 words are at the top of my website because if they want those 4 words, they're going to keep reading. If they don't, they close it and go away, and I'm thrilled for that. Because you not only want to attract your ideal couples, you want to repel those that you're not the fit for. It saves you time. So you want to think about these questions. What do they want from their ceremony and from their officiant? Are you that person? Can you do that happily and effectively and do for them? What do they actually value? Now, for a lot of my couples, when we meet, they want everybody there to understand their relationship. A lot of the people have been long distance. A lot of couples getting married now, COVID has played a real role in their relationship. And so many of them haven't traveled to see family as often as they would normally. They were in lockdown together. It's affected their relationship in all sorts of ways. And so, yeah, my couples want a ceremony that's really about them. That's what they value. I also tell them that if we do the ceremony right, we kick off the party. The party should start with us, not after us. I want to send them in for the rest of it already filled with the joy and happiness and excitement. The DJ shouldn't have to worry about pumping up the energy. It should already be there because we did that. And your price range. Now, again, this isn't total budget because I have done backyard weddings where I am the highest thing they did because they valued what I do and how I do it. Same way, I do weddings where I'm a rounding error in their budget. So I don't worry about what their total budget is. Again, when you are a photographer, when you're a wedding planner, all that stuff matters more. It doesn't necessarily matter as much for us if they value what you do. They can find room in their budget for you. If they don't, I don't want them to find room in their budget. I'm happy to send them to somebody less because if they're not valuing how I would do it, they're not going to want to do my homework assignments. We're going to be annoyed working together. What's the point? Send them to somebody who won't annoy them with homework. And I'll tell them that sometimes, by the way. So here is one exercise that I want you to do. So if you've done weddings, obviously if you have not, it's a whole different thing. But if you have done weddings, I want you to look back in your meeting notes. Are there things that show up over and over? That's where my 4 words came from. Now, I start my meetings with my couples by telling them, so here's, I want you to tell me what you want from your ceremony and what you don't want. The don't is just as important for me to know. Then we're going to walk through my process, how I work, the 2 homework assignments you're going to do for me. And then we get to decide whether we're right fit for each other and do this. And so I take notes and we chat. So that's how I start the meeting. I set the tone with that. So, because every once in a while they'll be like, so tell us how you work. And I'm like, no, it's backwards. Because I want to know what they want. Because then I can tell them if I'm their fit or not. I had a fantastic wedding planner send me a couple, 2 Asian men, and they were super friendly, great. We set up this meeting, and so what do you want? And they said, well, Christianity is incredibly important to us. It's a part of I'm literally 2 minutes in, and I'm like, I don't think I'm your person. They're like, really? And it's funny, when I talked to the wedding planner afterward, she's like, well, I knew you just did custom weddings. I figured you'd do whatever they want you to say. I need to be genuine in it in order to deliver it well, which is also why I need to meet both of them together, and I tell them I need to adore you together. If you're not amazing together, I don't want to marry you. I'm blunt with them about that too. So, because I can't do it in a genuine way. So we chatted further about what they want, and I told them where my line is, and I said, I highly expect what you want is totally different. I'm happy to make suggestions of some other officiants for you. And so, but by starting it that way, rather than me talking about my business or what I do, why? It's wasting all of our time if I kind of did, and then it's a sales pitch. No, I want to connect with them. So once I know what they want, if I'm their person, we get to connect on that stuff and talk about how we'll actually do that. Also, here's what I want you to do. I want you to reach out to your past couples, probably 5 of them that you consider ideal couples. And I want you to ask them 2 questions. What attracted you to me? Like, why'd you choose me? Why'd you choose to be in touch? Second question is, how would you describe me to your friend who got engaged and is planning a wedding? Because how they describe you, again, these were your past ideal couples. They were in the seat of your current inquiring couples a year or 2 ago. You don't know because you're not your ideal couple and you're much older, right? So you want to hear what they have to say. So how would they describe you? Those are, and then, because that's what you want to be including in your marketing messaging. Fishing with the right bait. You also want to ask other wedding pros how they describe you. My top 3 sources of bookings are wedding planners, venues, and the knot. Those are my top 3. So wedding planners and venues are obviously saying something to, they're not usually just handing them a list and they're contacting me. Usually they've said something about it. And I know one of the venues I work at a bunch, and he even told me, he's like, if you want a personal ceremony, you have to be in touch with Bethel. And if she's not your right fit, she'll suggest somebody else. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. So it sets that tone. So what are they telling people? And I can tell when a few of the venues just have me on the list versus the salesperson's actually telling them about me. I can see phases of where I'll get a whole bunch of inquiries about that venue, and then I won't. And clearly they're not actually, I install them on their list, but they're not saying anything. I will tell you, if you haven't done any or many weddings, it's obviously not going to be perfect at first, and you're going to learn. Every single couple, I want you to ask afterward, did I enjoy that? Was I their fit? Was that the great thing to do? And when you get the ones that you're like, oh, I want more of those, you need to figure out why. Like, what is it about them? Or what is it about what they wanted that makes them that? And when it's not, I have very few couples that I really dislike at the end of it, but every once in a while I do. Why? What is it about them? What was it about them? I've learned actually working with couples who are writers. Oh, I can't stand it. Because they kind of want to write the whole ceremony. I will never deliver a ceremony that somebody else has written. It's not my voice. It's uncomfortable. I'll definitely include certainly like pieces that they saw somewhere or whatever. But when they do, I make sure I introduce it as, especially if it's not something I like. I always introduce readings. This is a piece called Union, whatever. I always introduce a reading. But when it's something that I really don't love, I emphasize that before I do. And then at the end of it, I do it again. Those were the words of author, whatever. Something that, Janie loved the words of this author, so we're including this. But I really make sure it's not me. Because you need to, remember that Ideal Couple Cycle, you're getting reviews and referrals from these people, right? And from the vendors who saw you. I don't want to deliver a ceremony that is not me, and therefore they would send me more of something that's not me. Why? So now you need to focus your marketing. This is my not listing. I need to update this too, but one of the things that I also do afterward is I take a selfie with my couples after. We do the formal posed photo you can see after they sign license, and then I also do a selfie with them. And so it's really fun. Both of these, the photographers took when they were doing the selfie, they took a picture of us doing the selfie. So anyway, but you see, some of you are closer, you can see, but the very first thing it says under About This Vendor, fun, personal, meaningful, non-traditional. You recognize those 4 words? Yep, absolutely yes. So you want to be, remember, attracting your right people and repelling the non-ideal that they keep going. So first we're going to talk about that marketing. If you don't yet know, I want you to think about what words seem to be what would work and start with that and then see what's working. You're going to have to just totally test it out, right? If you don't know. However, you can also take a look at other people's copy. Do not copy them. Do not steal it. Do not anything. There's something called Copyscape, copyscape.com, for those of you who are more experienced and have great websites. If you've never used Copyscape to see if anybody's copied your verbiage, it's a good idea to do so every once in a while. I had a North Carolina officiant whose homepage was identical verbiage to mine. Yeah, she blamed it on her web developer that he just went and got that somewhere. I'm like, yeah, like you're not looking through and reading or whatever. It's a totally different font than the rest of her pages. It was really, literally just copied it. And so I found it on Copyscape. They also used the same verbiage on their WeddingWire listing, which also came up when I did Copyscape. I'm like, excuse me? So she ignored me about having to take it down, and then I got WeddingWire involved. And I'm like, because she plagiarized, and they were like, you need to change that verbiage or we're taking off your listing. So do not copy people. But you can take a look, especially different markets. Take a look at experienced officiants in all different markets. By the way, as Lewis mentioned, I'm a very proud member of IAPWO, the International Association of Professional Wedding Officiants. And I'm the VP and in charge of the education side of it. And so you can go on to iapwo.org. You can see who members are, because there's actually kind of a member listing in there, so people could find people. But take a look at other officiants, how they tend to describe. But don't copy it. Seriously, do not. And you will find words that resonate with you and your thoughts. I initially looked, when I was researching my business, I looked at officiants in my market. I thought I was supposed to describe myself as non-denominational. And when I then went through and looked at who non-denominational officiants were in San Diego, and I saw all these crosses, I don't think either they're wrong or I'm wrong. And I realized quickly I was wrong. Non-denominational still means Christian, but not at Baptist, whatever. So not non-denominational. And so some couples sometimes will say, I want a non-denominational wedding because that's what they think to call it too. But the reality is it's a non-religious, secular, civil. There's ways to describe it. But because so many of my couples consider themselves spiritual, not religious, the non-traditional tends to fit best. But anyway, think about that. Because you want to pre-warm your leads. And let's talk about what pre-warming is. This is what a typical sales funnel looks like, right? Normally, you'd advertise to the masses. They all come in through your funnel. You want as many people to come in. You then have to get them through the process and warm them as they go. The people who are not the fit will jump out. The people who are will keep going, right? That's a lot of time and that's a lot of effort. Instead, we're going to pre-warm them. When you pre-warm an oven, it cooks better, right? It cooks more consistently. It does what it's supposed to do. So that's what I want you to do here. Because if your inquiries can come in partway down your funnel, they're already warmed. So you don't need to have this crazy sales process getting them through. You're not wasting time on people who will never be your fit and would drop out, right? And so it's a lower cost per lead in time and money. You have a higher booking ratio, all those wonderful things. And you also could do less advertising. So you want people who can enter there. Now, the amount of pre-warming is usually determined by how they got to you and how much they know about you, right? I mentioned just being on the venue list versus them telling them about me is a different. So cold might be, that they saw your ad somewhere on a listing that doesn't have reviews or anything, or saw you on a list. When they're warm, though, they were recommended by somebody. So someone actually who they trust already. Remember, we do business with people we know, like, and trust. Couples do too. And so when they've already hired somebody and they love their photographer, they're like, do you have any officiants you can recommend? Oh, absolutely. You have to reach out to Bethel. She's the best one around. Like, that's amazing when that happens. That's the warm, right? Family friend or somebody told them to check you out is also warm. They're hot when they already attended a wedding that you did, right? They've seen you in action, or when they heard about from multiple people. The times I'll get people say, like, yeah, all of our vendors kept saying Bethel, so we clearly had to be in touch. That helps, and they come in hot. So when you focus on pre-warming your leads, you get to spend time with the people that you want. By the way, this couple of mine, they didn't want to do a first look. They wanted to do a first touch. So the photographer set them up in there. So they're awesome. They now have 2 little kids. Their dog was so adorable, I needed to include this picture. Yeah, both of them are Filipino. They're awesome guys, and we had a super fun time. Did a hand fasting for them, which Jimmy and I are going to demonstrate later. All sorts of, yeah, they were fantastic. These guys were awesome. So, you need to know what messaging is your right bait, right? You need to know what images are your right bait. So, you figure that out from the exercise I already told you. Review your notes, ask your colleagues. But now this is another powerful exercise for those of you who are experienced. You ready? Because I want you to mine your reviews. There is gold in your reviews. If you have reviews. Who has reviews on Google? Awesome. If you have an established business and you do not have a Google business listing, you need to do that. It's one of the most important things you can do. And then start getting reviews in Google. It is free. Business.google.com, I think is how you get to that. Business.google.com. They used to call it Google My Business, and now it's part of the Google Maps thing. But business.google.com. You want to establish a listing there. Because remember, SEO is run by Google. So the more content that you have on Google, both pictures of your weddings, verbiage of what you do, and reviews, the better your SEO gets. And so you want to start building up reviews on Google. 3 other places that people typically do is The Knot, Wedding Wire, and Yelp. So again, once you know where your couples are coming from, you can figure that out. So what I want you to do for those of you who have reviews, I want you to print out the last year or 2 of your reviews. And I want you to take 2 color pens or 2 highlighters. And I want you to highlight in one color the things that are mentioned about your ceremony, what they're officially purchasing from us, right? Then the other color pen, I want you to mark all of the customer experience stuff. That's your communication, your personality, the process. All of that stuff is really your customer experience. And then I want you to put those into either a single document or 2 different documents, those snippets. So you don't necessarily need the whole, when you start to get really raving reviews, or you have raving reviews, they could be like 2 or 3 paragraphs. I love those. But you're not going to put on your website a 3-paragraph review, like nobody's going to read that. So that's why you want to get some great snippets that you're going to use of reviews all over the place. And I'm not kidding, all over the place. So here's an example for a photographer and a wedding planner. So the things that she technically did in terms of planning their wedding, not only, so she had great recommendations and worked in with my crazy family. She's super knowledgeable and a great resource to have. I was able to have an amazing wedding weekend knowing that I had Courtney and her team on site. That last sentence needs to be everywhere, right? I was able to have an amazing wedding weekend knowing I had Courtney and her team on site. That needs to be a website, maybe even in your email signature, a post on social media, right? And then the customer experience stuff, I knew I was going to like Courtney as soon as her first email came through. She was able to answer all my questions, always responded promptly. It was a blast to work with. That's the customer experience stuff. Same for this photographer, the customer experience. Jasmine and her team were absolute perfection. The engagement shoot to the wedding planning, and of course the big day, she was an incredible delight to work with. Everything was delivered ahead of schedule and with passion. That's customer experience stuff. Whereas talking about the photos, the album was amazing. That's what they officially purchased. So that's what I want you to do with your reviews. And when you get that gold, you're using that everywhere, and I'm not kidding. You want that on your website. And don't worry about having a testimonials page on your website. Oh, people don't read that anymore. What I want you to do is have review snippets all over your website. Use your couple's words to reinforce what you're saying, because they can say it better than you can. You still want your verbiage and what you do, but use review snippets everywhere. Whether it's about Bethel's expensive, but she's worth every penny, that's going next to my pricing, right? Things like that. Think about what it is, because you want to be using that everywhere. You want to use that verbiage in any online listings you have if you have control of the copy. You certainly want to use that stuff in social media. But also, if you do wedding shows, they can be a fantastic way to meet couples and meet other vendors. And so knowing what mine is my 4 words, knowing kind of what your elevator pitch is, what your couples are looking for. Because when they come over to my booth, they don't know what to say to me. And so I start it and say, usually my couples want a ceremony that is fun, personal, meaningful, non-traditional, usually non-religious. And if they're like, yeah, then we keep talking. If they're like, do you need it to be religious? They're like, yeah. Like, okay, why don't you go to booth 207? Or drop me an email and I'll email you my favorites who are religious. So by me putting it out there, but those are the words that I got from mining our reviews and looking at my notes. And then totally when it comes to that initial call and meeting as well, they want to know if they're your people. And sometimes when I ask what do they want from their ceremony, they're not sure how to answer me. And so then I said, well, usually my couples are looking for a ceremony that is fun, personal, meaningful, non-traditional, right? You'll all know my 4 words in about 3 more minutes. And you can mark it for me. So you need to have it consistent across everywhere. So I want that if you're using a hero image on your website, which my hero image on my website currently is that safari park picture, you want that to be part of your header in Facebook. You want that picture to be somewhere on Instagram. You want that to be in places. So because you want that when they see you in multiple places, that your logo is clear and that they're seeing it's yours, that the colors you're using everywhere is consistent. You want that they are seeing your brand in a consistent way. By the way, who's going to Wedding MBA this year? What is Wedding MBA? Wedding MBA is a 2.5-day conference for all wedding pros. It is in Vegas. It is November 6th, 7th, 8th. It's Monday afternoon, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And it's fantastic. And so we have an officiant track. So there are 7 speakers who are speaking just to officiants, and you have 3 of them in this room. 2 in this room. You're emceeing, and then Chris is doing a presentation, as am I. So I'm talking about branding and advertising for the officiants. In the general sessions, which anybody can go to, I'm talking about closing the sale. So it's a fantastic conference. We all have discounted ticket. We can share codes with you, but it's fantastic. And what's that? Wedding MBA. MBA, yeah, merchant, like getting an MBA, but it officially stands for Merchant Business Association. I think she did, so weddingmba.com. But I have a coupon code that I can share with you. And so tickets usually end up being about like $199 or something. It's a really inexpensive conference, and it's fantastic. Fantastic. And you get to hang out, and that's when the officiants, we all see each other. So your marketing is setting up expectations, right? So it needs to be genuine to you. And even as you market less, it still needs to be absolutely genuine because that's really incredibly important. So then you need to focus your processes. This is all of your systems, what you do with them, what emails you send, what questionnaires you do, all that stuff are your processes and systems. And I geek out on this stuff, by the way. A lot of my business coaching, I work with them on their back end, on their processes and their systems, and it's awesome. So that is where you end up here. That's the customer experience stuff, because how you work with them. You have to remember that your couple has not done this before, most likely. And even if they did, they haven't done it with you. Even if it's second marriage, they haven't done it with you. So they need you to guide them. They don't know, right? And the journey that the couples take is set by you as your processes. I get asked a lot the difference between customer journey and customer experience. The customer journey you create, that's the path that walking through the beach dunes, right? You create that. Your couples get a customer experience as a result. So you try to give them this customer experience, but ultimately it's because you create your journey, and then they have an experience. They're comparing the reality of their expectations, the reality of what they got to their expectations. Their expectations probably came from all sorts of places. Their friend's wedding, media, blogs. They're expecting things, but they don't know how you're going to do things. So you have to be setting their expectations and then resetting them and managing them. We were talking last night about how we approach things. And I make sure in my meetings with my couples, we talk about my process and how we're going to do this and, the 2 assignments they're going to do for me and how we create this together. They approve a draft, except they don't get a certain part, which is from their homework and each other's answers. They don't see that yet. But I tell my couples that up front, that's how it's going to work. Some officiants never deliver a draft, and couples just trust them. Some officiants deliver absolutely everything, including the love story part and the personal part, and that they can see it and edit it. So there's no wrong answer. It's a matter of how you want to do it and how you're communicating to your couples. Because if you don't do what they're expecting, that's where they have problems, and that's where you get bad reviews and they're frustrated. So you have to consistently reset those. All of this is regardless of price, but you need to set those expectations. So that officiant I told you who is a lower price and a higher volume, his process is all automated. Boom, boom, boom. The moment they book him, they get certain emails at certain times. It puts their name in, but there's no personalization involved. My business is the absolute opposite. It's very templated, but every single email that goes out, I personalize before I send it to them, so it's relevant to them. So that's a very efficient business in systematizing, not automating. There are a few automated things. My reminder to pay the final invoice, automated. The meeting, when they choose it on Calendly, it sends them all the info. So there's a few things that are automated, but very little. Because again, that's what my couples want. The raving can still happen when you're lower priced. Again, as long as you've delivered what they were expecting that. I mentioned earlier that response time to the inquiry. As you build this ideal couple cycle, it can get longer and you do not need to worry about it. I recommend that you avoid automated answers. If you're truly out of the office on vacation, that's fine. But if not, the amount of the bounce back, thanks for inquiring, we'll get back to you in 24 to 48 hours. That doesn't really help you. So rather than that they're just waiting and getting a real email from you is better. Your communications throughout this thing is incredibly critical. The 2 main things your communication does is you want to give your couples information. They haven't done this before. So what information do they need to have the best possible experience for you? You also need to get information from them. They don't know what to give you. So what information do you need from them to give them that best possible experience? Right? They don't know. You need to tell them. Your communications to exceed expectations can include a couple other things. They can give additional information, maybe about your area or what they should be doing if you're dealing with destination couples. Or I always give information on how to get the marriage license. I think that's incredibly important. There's a variety of things that you're giving them information on. And building that communication, building that relationship and having that connection with them goes a long way towards all of the raving. And all of this sets them at ease because you're the expert, right? They need to know that. I mentioned earlier there's different versions of emails. You can have automated totally, templated is the middle, or fully manual. Fully manual, if you're just doing 1 or 2 weddings, is fine. When you're doing anything more than that, you want to at least template them and because why? Then you're not missing information. Because if you're having to type up every email from scratch, you have to be missing information sometimes. You're busy, you forgot to mention that, whereas when it's already templated. And so what I do is I have all the information I might want to send a couple about that, and then I take out the parts that are irrelevant to them, but I'm not typing it up again. So everything from my inquiry email to everything, get a marriage license, their ceremony creation process, all of that is already templated, but I personalize it for them before I send it out. All of the systemization and automation needs to match your couples and model that way. So most of us are in this semi-automated way. Again, that officiant I mentioned, he's fully automated. You really don't connect with him other than the meeting and then the wedding. He's fully automated. Totally fully manual is an amazing wedding planner, Andrea Eppolito, who is amazing. She's a WeddingPro Educator as well, and she does incredible high-end weddings in Las Vegas and unbelievable work. She does 6 weddings a year. She's super high touch, crazy budgets. She probably has some stuff systematized, but she's probably fully that because way high touch. But again, you need to charge for that. If you're not charging enough so the fully manual, I think you're crazy to do unless, again, you're just doing 1 or 2 weddings. Your communications are critical, and I hate to say that you're going to be judged on your spelling and grammar, but you are. Even if they email you with spelling errors and grammar, don't respond back that way. You want to be sure that you're professional. You have no idea who that email is going to be forwarded to. Forward to a mom, forward to a wedding planner. Just be your total professional self in all of your communications. You need to lead and guide them down that customer journey path, right? And so you have to reiterate some of this. Always make sure that they know what's coming next, what is coming next, and why they're doing this. And if you are not sure that your communications are great, you can have a colleague read through them. You can have me read through them. Make sure that it is saying what you want to say. Now, you have a mix of communication tools. I want you to be thinking about this huge toolbox that you potentially have. Naturally, emails are a given. Meetings, calls, whatever that is. You could give them an onboarding packet when they book you. You have an FAQ sheet if there's things that you want to have in there. I use online questionnaires for their homework, as well as to get their vendors and details. The homework they do for me, they answer separately a whole bunch of questions on their relationship and what marriage means and all of that. And they answer separately because I weave their voices into the ceremony. And so those are locked. They can't see them in their portal and cheat and see each other's answers. And then I have a vendors and details questionnaire that I gather. Who's their wedding planner? Who's their photographer? What are they wearing? Where are you going on your honeymoon? Either if you're changing your name, all these questions. And so I use online questionnaires to do that. It's incredibly easy for them to give me the answers. They can do it on their phone. They can do it 2 in the morning. So it makes it very easy. Texting or DMing with your couples, that's totally up to you. I don't usually text with them until the morning of, but sometimes they'll text me for various reasons along the way, but I don't usually initiate a text. I do send it's your wedding day type of text, and so to the 2 of them. So it's a joint text. Checklists are really powerful. It could be the first version of a system you have, where you actually have your stuff in a checklist. Videos, blog posts are incredibly helpful as well, things that they might want to know. All of these things are helping build the connection and helping in your process. And many of us have a CRM system that includes a lot of this, and I do. At minimum, I think you need to have an electronic contract and electronic payment. And you can do one-off things for that. Also, a calendar system. My couples love the fact that I send them a Calendly link, and so they can book time with me very, very easily. And then your ceremony. We're going to talk a lot more about ceremony stuff later, Jimmy and I, so I won't talk too much about it now. But I want you to remember that it's personal to them, even if it's our business. This is a very personal day. So even if you're doing a standard, generic ceremony, you're still making it sweet and fun and beautiful for them, right? This is still a meaningful moment. But don't deliver more than they're paying for, unless it's your decision. I charge less for an elopement. I charge $600. For me, an elopement is 5 to 6 people max, and anything over that's a wedding. I charge significantly less. My process is pretty same because I don't want to do a generic ceremony even for elopements, but I don't feel like I love elopements, and I don't want to price myself out of being able to do them. So that's a business decision, not necessarily a logical decision, right? That you decide it for your own business. Yes, you can be more flexible without being taken advantage of. And please deliver what you promised and be consistent, because people are judging you every time. And then you're going to evaluate and improve. All of this, you're going to continually change over and over in your business. So that is the full cycle. That is what we're doing. As you evaluate and improve, you're going to reread your reviews all the time. See what's in there and see what's not in there. Are there things people are consistently not saying about you? Read between the lines. Maybe it's something you can improve on, or maybe it's something you get rid of that you don't really need to do. That's totally up to you. I send my couples a packet in the mail afterward that has their final ceremony printed on linen paper, a keepsake certificate that I have the witnesses sign, because I always say the license is pretty, but it's powerful, it's not pretty. So I do a prettier thing for them. And I do a handwritten card in there too. Again, that's the customer experience I want, and I'm a $1,000 officiant. I was consistently, before I even got to $1,000, I was like, what does a $1,000 officiant do? That's what I want to be doing. And do you have colleagues who might be able to give you feedback? Wedding planners you work with regularly, photographers regularly, if there's anything that they can suggest. You could also ask past couples if you feel that you really want to improve on that. But overall, please improve your high impact things first. So in wrap up, I told you a lot today, didn't I? Head's kind of exploding. So that's why I'm going to share the slides, because I want you to be thinking about this. So the first thing is you absolutely need to know your ideal couple, because that is the basis of happiness and success in your business. We all can talk about couples that we should have said no to, or we just didn't even see it, right? And then we know which couples we absolutely adore and what we love. And if I can leave most of those thrilled and happy, that's a great business to have. You're going to aim your marketing to attract your ideal couples and repel those who are not. You're going to design all of your systems and processes to work with what they want. And you're going to regularly evaluate and improve and pay attention to industry trends and market changes. There you go, that's me. Thank you. Here's where you can find me. So for Elevate by Bethel is the coaching stuff. I'm actually in the midst of doing a brand new website, so it should be a brand new website within a month, finally. That's me as a celebrant, and the Business of Officiating online program. So that is where you can find me.